A herringbone hem creates a smooth finish on heavier weight fabrics like wool. This type of hem is most commonly used on trousers but can be useful whenever heavyweight fabrics are used. For this example, I'm using this twill checked wool. As you can see, it has a heavy weight and loose weave, making it perfect for a herringbone hem. To begin, I fold the raw edge up 1/2 inch and pin in place as I go. Due to the thickness of this fabric, it is essential to use pins as the fabric will not hold a crease. I continue folding and pinning the length of my hem, making sure to leave enough room between my pins so that I am able to press the hem. Next, I make sure that my iron is on the wool setting so as not to ruin my fabric. I then carefully press my 1/2 inch fold, avoiding my pins and removing them as the fold is ironed in place. Here I'm just removing some of the loose threads so that I have a nice crisp fold. Next, I do my second hem fold, this time 1 inch wide. As this fabric is so thick, I made my first fold narrower than my second so that my hem has less bulk and will lie flat. I pin this fold in place the entire length of my hem, just like the previous fold. I then iron this fold in place, removing my pins as I go. I then thread my needle. For this example, I'm using a contrasting thread so that you can see what I'm doing, but I recommend that you use a thread that matches the colour of your fabric. Remember to thread your needle before you cut the thread from the reel. You want your thread to be approximately the length from your wrist to your elbow. A herringbone hem is different from most hand stitches in that it is worked from left to right. Starting from the left, we begin our stitch by securing our thread only in the folded fabric of the hem, not the main part of our garment. I take a small stitch, leaving a small tail of thread. I then work another stitch on top of the last one, and I use my thumbnail to hold the tail of thread whilst I pull the stitch tight. I then work one more stitch on top of the previous two and my thread should be nice and secure. I then carefully trim the tail of thread so that it doesn't get in the way. Although we are working from left to right, our stitches are still worked with the needle facing to the right. I take my first small stitch from the main fabric of the garment about a thumb's width from my starting point. Notice the long diagonal stitch that joins the hem to the garment. I then cross my thread over this diagonal stitch and work my next small stitch with the needle pointing back the way we have come in the folded fabric of the hem. This is how we create the crisscross effect of the herringbone stitch. I pull my threads taut but not too tight as I want there to still be a little bit of movement in the hem. From the right side, all you should be able to see is a small stitch like this one. I repeat this process for the next stitch, crossing the thread over my long diagonal stitch back up to take a small stitch from the main garment with the needle pointing to the left. And then I take another small stitch from the fabric of the hem, crossing the thread over the diagonal of the previous stitch. Here's the stitch a bit closer up. With the needle pointing back the way we have come, I take a small stitch from the main fabric of the garment, making sure my thread crosses over the diagonal of the previous stitch. With the needle pointing the same way, I take a small stitch from the fabric of the hem, creating another cross with my thread. Here I am working the stitch a few more times so that you can see how this stitch works from various angles once you've got the hang of it. You can see how I use the width of my thumb as a guide for the distance between the stitches. That way I can keep my stitches relatively even. Once I get to the end of my hem, I like to take one last stitch from the fabric of the garment before I finish off my thread, as this helps to keep the hem secure. I finish my thread in the same way I started off, by working 3 back stitches on top of each other in the folded fabric of the hem. I then cut my thread and the hem is complete. Here you can see the finished effect of the herringbone stitch from the wrong side. The effect of those crosses is to smooth out the thick bulk of the 3 layers of wool so that you don't get a harsh line from the right side. Even with my bright yellow thread, it's difficult to see this stitch from the right side. The other benefit of the herringbone stitch is the amount of movement it gives to the hem. This is perfect for the heavy fabrics as it distributes the weight of the hem more evenly, preventing creases and puckers. I hope this video was useful. Now you have no excuse not to tackle those trouser hems you've been meaning to fix for ages. Thanks for watching. See you next time.